Good day. First, I want to thank you for your patience as I read this. In this short time allotted, I want to be sure to maximize my time. My name is Denise McKee, and I am speaking to you from Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. I want to acknowledge that I am coming from and speaking from the traditional lands of Chief Dry Geese of the Yellowknife Dene First Nations. I also recognize all the First Nations, Inuit and Métis people who live within and have formed the Northwest Territories. Prior to beginning, I wish to cite and thank the information and statistics provided and contained in this presentation from the paper entitled Northwest Territories Residential Southern Placement Program, Commodification, Dislocation, and Colonization Through Care, July 2020, major research paper, Critical Disability Studies Program, York University, author Alanis McKee, MA, supervisor Rachel De Silveira Gorman, PhD, advisor Sean Hillier, PhD. I find myself in a difficult position as I come before you today. I am consistently asked, as many have been before me, to bring a voice to the table from the North. I am cognizant of and consistently examining my own positioning of privilege within this very complex structure and amongst the many voices of the North. I am a white settler with a disability that relocated from Ontario to the Northwest Territories 13 years ago. I have 4 children who have spent more than half their lives in the Northwest Territories. With their permission, I can disclose that 3 have a disability and my oldest son is autistic with concurrent disorders. We first lived in the small flying community of Aklavik, Northwest Territories, with a population of approximately 500 people, almost all of which are Indigenous people. We eventually relocated to Yellowknife, where we have lived and where I assumed the position of Executive Director for the NWT Disabilities Council and have been for the past decade. I hope to come to the table informed by my lived experience, my years in the field of disability, the cited research, and most importantly, as an ally whose positioning at this table affords me the opportunity to elevate the voices of those that have entrusted me with their stories and truths. I do not claim to know their perspective, speak for them, or to co-opt their experiences. As the mother of an autistic son with multiple concurrent disorders, I am cognizant that he would fall within this cohort to which I am speaking today. I am also aware that through his experiences in the North, although they have been harsh and our family is often in crisis, they do not represent the full scope of impact when considering intersectional factors. In determining whether to speak here today at all, I have spent nights and rewritten pages to capture the North and its uniqueness in the few minutes afforded. I have come to the conclusion that it is impossible. Having made this determination, I then needed to decide, would not speaking even be a louder statement? After all, we all sat here last year and listened to first-person recounts from Indigenous peoples living on reserves in Northern Ontario, and although everyone in the room was moved, it did not seem them to move to action. My goal here was not to continue the inaction by allowing those that position themselves as a national voice for autism to present themselves with the rhetoric of consulting and offering participation for the purpose of optics, when truthfully it is merely a symbolic gesture to feign inclusion of the North. So I will take these few minutes to first paint the landscape. The Northwest Territories has approximately 45,000 territorial residents, spread across 1.3 million square kilometers and divided into 33 communities. Approximately 50% of these 33 communities are remote and inaccessible by all-season road, and most have a population of less than 1,000 people. Approximately 50% of the population identifies as Indigenous, and there are 11 official languages. This immense geographical area, small population, limited infrastructure and resources in small communities, led to the uniqueness and difficulties with supports and services in the Northwest Territories. As one moves from the West Coast to the East Coast, above the 60th parallel, the services and supports diminish. Unemployment and serious social issues become more prevalent, and they are unaddressed and widespread. Communities, wide geographic dispersal, low population size, lack of connection to populated areas, the high cost of living, and limited infrastructure development within communities frames healthcare delivery in the Northwest Territories. Although I could spend days on the impact of economics, geography, access to universal health care, and a multitude of other confluent factors which uniquely present in the Northern Territory, impacting service delivery in the Northwest Territories compared to its southern and western counterparts, I do not have the time in this short presentation. Instead, I wish to take this time to bring to light the undercurrent of health service delivery in the Northwest Territories by addressing residential southern placements. The Northwest Territories Health and Social Services delivers services through a centralized model. Within this framework, long-term care and health services are delivered through regional centers which residents from surrounding smaller communities must travel to in order to access services. That said, the range of services offered within the territory, even in the territorial capital, remain extremely limited. In response to this, the Northwest Territories has established and become heavily reliant on contracted health and social care from southern provinces in Western Canada, particularly Alberta. In this system, territorial residents are sent on medical travel from the Northwest Territories to health and social service care facilities in provinces to the south, where their health needs can be met. Residents with lifelong or long-term care needs that cannot be met in the Northwest Territories are those who become subject to residential southern placements. When I speak of needs that cannot be met, I speak of health needs that would never cause displacement or even at times significant inconvenience in the South and are consistently met elsewhere. You may be asking, why then? Dislocation is central to the functioning of the Residential Southern Placement Program. In this program, Indigenous peoples with cognitive disabilities find themselves subjected to displacement from their families, communities, and land for extended periods of time. As indicated from the Freedom of Information requests, these placements, for most adults, last from years to a lifetime. Once disconnected from their families and touted as caring for Indigenous people, it is tantamount to medical colonialism. Although Indigenous people are not explicitly identified in policies, the fact that they make the vast majority of the individuals in the program are Indigenous, it can be implied that the program specifically targets Indigenous peoples. Although, as I have mentioned, Indigenous peoples represent 50% of the population of the Northwest Territories, over 90% of the people in residential placements are Indigenous, with the vast majority presenting with cognitive disability. The intersectionality of these two factors point towards overarching eugenic and colonial imperatives aimed at erasing Indigenous identity and disability in Canada through the delivery of specific health policy in the Northwest Territories. Colonialism embedded into healthcare policy is just one example of how it acts as an apparatus of colonialism that advances Indigenous erasure through the reproduction and perpetuation of dislocation from land imposed onto Indigenous people, disruption of natural connectedness of Indigenous peoples through the forced separation of families and communities, and disruption of knowledge transmission that impedes the acquisition of traditional languages and cultural expression. This dislocation and eradication of Indigenous peoples and disability through healthcare policy is just one example which can be mimicked through other institutional structures in the Northwest Territory, such as education, public housing, income security, and more. This is why the Voices of the North, specifically the Northwest Territories, and my fervent desire, Nunavut as well, cannot be co-opted by organizations for the purpose of policy development, financial benefit, or political positioning. The North will never have the numbers to compete with southern urban centers. That is why it requires its own space and voices. In fact, the more isolated and less populated the community, the greater the need, as many of these small communities face issues such as lack of access to health services, unemployment, food insecurity, affordable housing, education at rates that are staggeringly disproportionate to anywhere nationally. Its uniqueness must be authentically represented. The wisdom of its Indigenous peoples must be respected, and the autonomy of Indigenous communities to understand their needs and direct their supports. Northern representation can no longer be rolled into Southern policy under the guise of inclusion. There must be a linear connection and independent oversight from the federal government to Indigenous governments on the policies developed, the impact of those policies on communities, and the gatekeeping of funding by territorial governments. To see this come to fruition, there must be a Northern strategy in any national strategy, informed and directed by the Voices of the North. This space must be given and held in order to create meaningful and insightful change. Without this, any organization does not truly represent a national voice, and it must understand that because it presents as an organization that exists to elevate an oppressed group, that it can also act as an oppressor. These are difficult conversations, but to truly become a national organization that represents all voices of our country, it cannot solely be based on numbers, and it must consider its own historical and colonial practices. I look forward to participating in any and all initiatives that move to improve and create real change for the North. Otherwise, I reserve this participation until such time that an equal seat at the table is created. Thank you. Masicho.